An 8-foot-tall hairy monster spotted crouching on a mountain ledge. A woman chased out of the woods by an unknown creature in Ohio. A humanoid beast lurking by the side of the road. These are some of the creepiest Bigfoot sightings caught on camera. Did you catch that? Here it is, zoomed in and slowed down. So this footage comes from a man named Todd Standing. He's pretty well known in the Bigfoot enthusiast community. He's filmed a few pretty famous alleged pieces of Sasquatch footage, including this one here, which according to him was his first close-up sighting with one of the creatures. After the creature left, Todd and some of his crew apparently made their way up the cliff to try and determine how big this thing really was, and to them it looked like the thing may have been well over 8 feet tall. This footage was famous enough to show up on an episode of Finding Bigfoot, where they tried to recreate the footage by having one of the bigger guys on the team stand on the same ledge so they could try and get a sense of the creature's size in the video, and what they found was that the thing in the video was noticeably taller and bulkier. But ultimately, they couldn't definitively say whether Todd Standing's video was genuine or a hoax. This next video comes from Dee's Dark Adventures on YouTube. Seems she had a run-in with someone or something lurking in the trees while on a hike one night in Ohio. It starts when she sees a pair of eyes glaring at her from the shadows. She gets rightfully spooked and decides to make her way out of the forest, but whatever was watching her follows her. She makes it into a clearing and spots the thing again staring at her from the tree line. See how high up the eyes go when it stands up? At this point, she's in full panic mode and screams for whatever it is to just stop, but then it comes out from the trees and she can't tell if what she's looking at is a human or an animal of some kind. Creepy video. I like how she sounds genuinely terrified and panicked. And because it's Ohio, gotta wonder if that is the Ohio Grassman. Kind of their version of Bigfoot. Watch our Ohio videos to learn more about that. This is a really cool video. I mean, that thing looks terrifying. So this footage was taken on a stationary camera. I don't think anyone's standing there filming this. At least that's what we're led to believe here. I guess the idea is this was taken on a game camera or something, but clearly we see this big hairy man beast crouching in the bush. And when it stands up, it starts slamming logs and branches around. I don't know about you, but this is how I actually picture Bigfoot looking. It has this almost human face, but of course covered in this mane of unkempt fur. It's a creepy video, and we get a look at the thing for a good long time too. And not that it would be impossible for a regular person to lift a dead tree like that and slam it into the ground, but if this is a hoax, the person in the suit is pretty strong. So this is an impressive hoax, if it is one. I don't know. This footage was taken in southern Ontario, Canada by YouTuber Timber Giant Bigfoot. It's become a pretty well-known piece of video, sometimes referred to as the Big Red footage. This guy had his camera on the creature for a good stretch of time. This isn't just some blurry figure walking through the woods from like a mile away. Now, whatever the thing is, it looks big and hairy. Also doesn't really appear to be a bear. There really only are black bears in this part of the country, and this thing does not look like a black bear. Anyway, he has a bit of a hard time keeping his camera on the thing because he's zooming in from a fair distance. I wouldn't want to get too close either. He films for a good few minutes before the big creature gets up and walks off. What you're looking at here is footage taken by cryptozoologist Paul Freeman. Paul Freeman is still regarded as one of the most important investigators in the Bigfoot community. This video was captured in the Blue Mountains of Northeast Oregon in 1994, and it's often referred to as one of the best pieces of Sasquatch video evidence. Aside from this video, Paul Freeman was also well known for his plaster casts he made out of supposed Bigfoot tracks. The casts were studied quite a bit because they showed dermal ridges, and anthropologists like Jeff Meldrum of Idaho State University considered the casts highly credible pieces of possible evidence and put a lot of time and effort into studying them. As for this video, is it genuine, a hoax? It could go either way, but I like that we get a pretty good look at the creature here, enough to see a bit of a face rather than just a dark blur somewhere off in the distance. Portlock, Alaska. It used to be a busy little salmon cannery town on the southern coast, but by the 40s it was completely abandoned after a string of terrifying attacks. And I mean terrifying. This was not a bear or a wolf, it was something later dubbed the Portlock Sasquatch. The stories, they go back decades, as far back as 1905. Workers said something massive stalked their camps at night, leaving tracks and scaring people off. Every summer it seemed to come back, and hunters who wandered too far into the woods, sometimes they just never came back. In 1931, a woodchopper was found dead out in the forest. Witnesses said he'd been killed by a single blow. Was way too much force for any normal man to have pulled off. Over the next 10 years, there were multiple incidents. People claimed the thing was dragging villagers off into the trees, leaving mangled bodies behind. Nobody felt safe. Eventually, everyone packed up and left, turning Portlock into a ghost town almost overnight. But let's not move on from the Portlock Sasquatch just because, like I said, there were tons of incidents. Not long after that woodchopper was found dead in 1931, hunters heading out for moose noticed that a set of moose footprints had just stopped, and in its place were larger footprints, over 18 inches long. The whole area was torn up too. Tree branches were snapped, there was blood everywhere, but there was no sign of the moose. The only tracks leading away were those massive prints, vanishing once the ground turned rocky. Before long, more of these tracks started popping up around Portlock, and it wasn't just footprints. One local said he actually saw a giant hairy man tearing apart the fish wheels they used to process salmon. The man ran to grab his firearm, but when he came back, the creature was just standing there, staring at him. That creeps me out. Then it turned around and just walked off. After that, sightings became constant. These were folks who lived around bears, wolves, and mountain lions every day though. They knew the difference between normal predators and whatever this thing was. During a training exercise in the forests of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, his unit often spent weeks at a time in the wilderness. These were field operations, long stretches of patrolling and camping with only rifles loaded with blanks. According to him, strange things kept happening during those nights. The men sometimes spotted glowing eyes in the tree line, or they'd see vague figures through their night vision gear. They would hear knocks echoing from the woods or movement just beyond the perimeter, but nothing ever showed itself. One night though, around 3 a.m., 2 Marines were on watch while the rest of the unit slept. Both men saw shapes moving about in the darkness. Then small rocks started landing near them. Thinking it was a rival unit trying to ambush them, they quietly woke the others up and set up a defensive line. They opened fire with blanks, and that's when 2 massive, upright creatures stepped into view. One shoved over a tree and let out a deep growl that absolutely shook everyone there. When daylight came, they searched the area and found huge prints around the knocked over tree. King Tiger IV admitted he'd always been skeptical about Bigfoot, but after that made him a believer, and to this day he struggles to go into the woods. In 1978, the Caton family of Minerva, Ohio reported a terrifying encounter with this massive hairy creature near their home. They claimed it threw rocks at their house and left behind huge footprints in their yard. This was not a one-time event. Neighbors also reported seeing the same beast lurking in the area. The wave of sightings became known as the Minerva Monster Case, and it drew heavy media coverage at the time. Former Stark County Sheriff Jim Shannon, who responded to one of the Caton's calls, later said they were terrified. "I will always believe them that they saw something, it's just what did they see?" In July of 1924, 5 prospectors, Fred Beck, Marion Smith, Roy Smith, Gabe Lefevre, and John Peterson, reported a terrifying encounter with what they referred to as, quote, mountain devils near Mount St. Helens, Washington. It became known as the Ape Canyon Attack. The men had been mining when they noticed unusual thumping sounds at night and massive 14-inch human-like footprints around their camp. One morning, Fred and Marion saw a 7-foot-tall hairy creature near a spring. They fired their rifles at it but missed, and the creature retreated back into the woods. That night, the men were supposedly attacked at their cabin by 3 large ape-like creatures. The beings threw rocks and pounded on the walls and roof, trying to break in. At one point, one of the creatures grabbed an axe through a gap, but the men managed to wrest it away. The attack lasted 5 hours until dawn, when the creatures finally retreated. As the men cautiously stepped outside, Fred spotted one creature on the canyon edge and fired at it, sending it tumbling into a gorge. The prospectors quickly left the area and reported the incident to a ranger, but the body of the creature was never found. The story spread nationwide though, and Ape Canyon became a famous Bigfoot site.
I'm not gonna lie, this is impressive, fake or not. The everyday person is not able to lift a 30 to 50 pound pine tree like that and swing it over its head, unless someone was purposely training in the gym like that with a barbell, which is roughly the same weight. But this thing picks it up like it's a baseball bat, swings it up and brings it down hard on another stack of branches. I was watching this video and was feeling a little anxious myself. When it looks at the camera, that's where it kind of loses me, because it looks a little too human-like, but has one of the most intense stares I've ever seen, as it locks eyes with us down the barrel of the camera. I couldn't tell you why he's ripping up the forest like this. Maybe he's building a little nest to attract some pretty female Bigfoot tests. Even at the end, this guy's height is quite huge, and he's standing next to pine trees. I'm not good at measuring by eye, so I'm gonna leave y'all to figure that one out. Overall, very entertaining video, despite it possibly being fake, because I was impressed by the raw strength. Ain't nothing like the comfort of driving in the middle of the night on a road that's covered in snow, making it even more difficult to even attempt at trying to drive away if something came after you. Thankfully, nothing does for these guys, who apparently spotted a Yeti, which is a part of the same family as a Bigfoot, fun fact, in Russia. This was all caught on camera with their dash cam, and on their drive, spotted, at least what it appears to me, a man ran and jumped over a snowbank, crossed the road, and into the darkness whence it came. This one doesn't appear as tall as the one in the first video, and it looks to be around my height. Maybe a younger Yeti? If my height is considered to be an average height of a baby Yeti, I'm going to scream. I think it's clear though that this wasn't CGI at least, because as they get closer to where they spotted the monster, we even get to see the footprints it left behind. At first, it looks like they didn't even realize the footprints were there until they stopped the car and reversed themselves to get a better look. Personally, that's an interesting little thing to have, because the majority of fake videos would either end at the sighting, but adding in such a natural human gesture like that of taking a double take of the footprints just seemed really intriguing to me. It just feels right to include more of the Yeti Bigfoot in these videos due to it being December and around Christmas time. The clip is pretty straightforward. We see what appears to be a white speck make its way across the side of a cliff at a pretty decent speed, and not the usual tempo that people struggle with while their feet are being absolutely vacuumed by the frozen water beneath them. The creators of this video also included some interesting footage of the supposed footprints around the area where it was seen. But this is where it loses me, because when they zoom in on the prints, sure, they look pretty cool at first, but footprints don't usually appear like they're walking on a tightrope. You gotta stagger them, not make them completely straight. I will give you props though, because I'm finding it difficult to how you would have managed to pull it off without leaving any prints yourself. Drone mayhaps?
Well, we can't really call this thing Bigfoot, Littlefoot maybe, Sasquatch Jr. This footage was posted by a woman named Stephanie Wood to the Bigfoot Believers Facebook group. In her post, Stephanie shared this blurry image of what she claims could be a baby Sasquatch, or a squatchlet, a term sometimes used to describe smaller, more elusive Bigfoot-like creatures. Along with the original photo, she posted a cropped close-up of the figure, saying that while the first instinct might be to dismiss it as a person in a costume, after a closer inspection, she's just not sure. She wrote, "Could this be a baby Sasquatch, or one of those hairy little people that pop up in reports every now and then?" Now, what I'd like to ask is, sorry, who are these little hairy people that pop up in reports every now and again? My brain needs to learn more about this. Anyway, some commenters are convinced by the photo, with one person claiming that the deer in the foreground really makes it more believable, and I gotta say, I didn't think of this at first, but I think I agree. It's not easy to get that close to a deer. They'll usually just have run off long before you get a chance to get this distance from it, let alone pose for a photo like this, but maybe deer are more comfortable with young Sasquatches. So I remember this one really creeping me out when I first saw it over a decade ago. The story here is that this video was taken in Carbondale, Pennsylvania, where residents had apparently been reporting strange sightings and eerie noises at night, with some even spotting a creature resembling Bigfoot. But this creature was different. It was described as being white in color, more like a Yeti. One local homeowner managed to capture this video of the creature after hearing a disturbance in their backyard, which is surrounded by dense woods. Now, some people are kind of thrown by the cameraman's reaction here. He sees this furry white monster dashing through the trees at night, and his reaction is a pretty casual sounding, "What was that?" Well, some commenters disagree, saying the subdued reaction actually sounds pretty convincing. One commenter wrote, "As far as the reaction of the photographer, 'What was that?' it's not too hard to understand. When looking out in the darkness, things are not as easily recognizable. Also, he does not have the luxury of viewing the creature on YouTube in slow motion, and the mind barely has time to make a judgment of what it is." But what are your judgments on this one? Let us know down below. This video was taken in Algonquin Park, Ontario, Canada in 2010 with a bumper mounted GoPro. Zooming in and slowing things down, you can clearly see a large dark figure standing by the side of the road. Now, the video was taken by an unnamed man who sent it to the Ontario Wildlife Research Bigfoot group, who released it. One interesting point that a YouTuber named Snowwalker Prime made, who analyzed and reposted this footage, is that walking around in a gorilla suit in this neck of the woods really is ill-advised. You could easily get mistaken for a bear and get taken out by a hunter. So if this is a hoax, it's a kind of dangerous one. What I also like about this footage is that the original video was over an hour long. The guy filming apparently took lots of videos of his drives through the area. This was just one small piece edited down, and it just makes the footage a little more convincing. Plus, the figure does not look human. If that is a suit, it's a really good one. It's got those long arms, it's big, it's a good one. This video was taken in Alaska, posted to the YouTube channel Patua76, who wrote in the description, "I was on a logging road in Ketchikan hiking with my friend when I saw it. Boy, did my heart start racing. I was about 40 yards from the road, not sure if it knew I was there or not because of the noise flowing from water from the stream. It seemed to travel fast. It made my hair stand up. At one point you can see a whitish yellowish thing in its hand. You could see it jump, and after that point it just seems to disappear. There was a lot of brush and trees between it and I. I could not tell where it had gone. It was a scary, sort of exciting feeling at the same time. We went to search for tracks, but the riverbed where we thought it was walking was full of perfect skipping rocks. We found no prints." Now, after filming the creature walking behind a tree, the cameraman loses sight of it, and after scanning the trees for a bit, he decides to get out of there. And yeah, the last thing you'd want is to see a Bigfoot and then not know where it is around you. That's a scary idea. So I don't have a lot of info on this last one, only that it was captured by a group of hikers in Colorado. Take a look at this. Alright, so a pretty hectic video, right? The camera is shaky as hell. We only get a quick glimpse of the creature before it runs into the brush, but all the same, the thing does look massive. And let's be honest, if you found yourself in this situation, would you really be holding the camera perfectly steady and getting like Stanley Kubrick level steady shots of the thing? Yeah, probably not. I'd love to know more about this video, so if anyone has any info, let me know down below. And what are your thoughts on Sasquatch and Bigfoot and Yeti and whatever other hairy creatures you know of? This first story is one of the earliest widely circulated Bigfoot accounts in American history. It was told by Teddy Roosevelt, of all people. Before he became president, Roosevelt spent time ranching in North Dakota and exploring the wilderness. In his 1893 book, The Wilderness Hunter, he recounts a story told to him by an elderly frontiersman simply referred to as Bowman. It took place in the Bitterroot Range of Idaho and Montana. Bowman and a partner were trapping in a remote pass when they set up camp in a small glade. After leaving for a bit to hunt, they came back to find their lean-to destroyed and their belongings scattered everywhere. At first they assumed it was a bear, but when they examined the tracks, they realized the creature had been walking around on two legs. Not impossible for a bear, but not something they normally do for very long. Well, that night, Bowman was woken up by a strong odor. That's when he saw a massive shadowy figure at the entrance to their camp. He fired his rifle, but missed, and the creature vanished into the darkness. The men spent the night on high alert, and in the morning found the lean-to destroyed again, with two-legged footprints leading away. Over the next day, as they collected traps, Bowman's companion was killed. The attacker was described as a monstrous half-human, half-beast creature that apparently struck silently from behind, breaking his neck and biting his throat without consuming the body. Bowman abandoned everything but his rifle, and he fled. Now, Roosevelt made it very clear in his book that Bowman was this stoic, experienced frontiersman, not one to get spooked easily. But as he told Roosevelt the story, his voice quivered. He seemed genuinely traumatized. In 2002, a hunter in Choctaw County, Oklahoma, reported being chased back to his truck by a Sasquatch. His report was shared by the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. It was dusk. He was following the railroad tracks when he heard something moving behind him. Now, like most of these cases, he assumed it was a bear at first. But when he looked back, he saw this large bipedal creature moving back into the woods. It was about 7 feet tall, with a long torso and arms with dark fur, making grunting sounds like a hog. Moments later, the thing started hurling rocks at him. Of course, he bolted back to his truck. The hunter also mentioned an old man by the lake who shot at a very similar looking creature, only to have more return and throw rocks and sticks at his house. Other loggers in the area had also told similar stories about strange, aggressive creatures roaming those woods. Just back in February, a Penn State student known only as MK to the media was hunting raccoons in the Pennsylvania game lands. While walking along a creek, he felt uneasy, like something was watching him, and he noticed strange sounds, plap, 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 like something was dropping into water, along with bubbling noises in the creek. As it got darker, MK heard a sharp knock against a tree and realized something was following him. He tried to keep as calm as possible as he headed back toward his truck, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being stalked. Thinking it may be a person who wanted to do who knows what, he decided to call a friend on speakerphone, asking him to meet him and bring his AR-15. Then about 40 yards away, he saw it. It was a massive creature standing on 2 legs. It had gray skin, a receding hairline, and a very muscular build. The thing had no neck, and its face, as MK said, looked like King Kong. He only got a brief look at it before it disappeared back into the trees. Fortunately, he did make it back safely to his truck, but he was pretty shaken up. In May of 1971, Bobby Ford of Fouke, Arkansas, claimed he was attacked outside his home by a massive ape-like creature. Ford described it as 7 feet tall, 3 feet wide across the chest, with red eyes and heavy, labored breathing. According to him, the beast put its arm around his shoulder and tried to grab him. Terrified, Ford managed to tear free and sprinted so fast that he didn't stop to open his front door, he just crashed straight through it. He was treated at the hospital for scratches and shock. Now, before this, Ford said the creature had been hanging around his property for days. His wife Elizabeth reported waking up one night to see a hairy arm with claws reaching through a window, and she also noticed its glowing red eyes. On the night of the actual attack, Ford, his brother, and a hunting companion claimed they spotted the figure near the house with a flashlight. They opened fire on it. Thought they saw it collapse, but when screams rang out from the women inside the house, Ford ran back. That's when the creature ambushed him. Deputies investigated and found strange 3-toed tracks and claw marks on the porch. Soon after, reporters Jim Powell and Dave Hall visited the scene and found the Ford family were packing up, leaving the home they just moved into. Powell's article coined the name Fouke Monster. Within months, the story spread like wildfire. The following year, it inspired the cult film The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is really worth a watch if you're into Bigfoot type stuff. There are not a lot of genuinely spooky Bigfoot movies out there, but Legend of Boggy Creek is definitely one of them. In 1924, Canadian prospector and woodsman Albert Ostman went on a vacation near Toba Inlet in British Columbia. He'd heard stories of what locals called man-beasts in the area, but he dismissed it all as superstition. One night, though, Ostman claimed he was abducted while in his sleeping bag by a large, hairy creature who carried him across the wilderness for 3 hours before finally stopping at a plateau. And that's where Ostman encountered a family of 4 of these creatures, 2 adults and 2 children. Apparently, that's where he was kept for 6 days. According to Ostman, though, the creatures, they weren't aggressive, they were just keeping him there. He just watched as they went about their daily lives, also giving him what he described as sweet grass to eat. Ostman eventually escaped by feeding the large male some tobacco, making it groggy and then running off. He didn't come forward with his story until over 30 years later in 1957. He was scared everyone was going to think he was crazy.
Another beefy boy, but this time he's got some red coloring unlike the usual black majority of us are used to. This video was uploaded to the channel Sasquatch Confessions, so I think the original filmer was left anonymous. From how I'm seeing it, the guy filming happened to find the Sasquatch on a trail path and had originally mistaken it for a bear, until it got up and walked away. It seemed to know he was there. I mean, yeah, you're in an open area and you're pointing a camera directly at him, I would notice you too. And then this alleged beast gets up to leave. He is quite the size. Tall? Not so much, but wide? Oh yes, he's got that moto build. Dare I say, he also looks mighty cuddly too. He looks like he's in his bulking phase for hibernation, and I can only imagine the hug I could give this thing. As for convincing me, I'm not sure, because he kind of walks away like he's a giant puppet. No arm swing, no stretching of muscles as he moves. The uploader of this video has the YouTube channel named Gulf Island Rock and titled this finding as Bigfoot Sasquatch sighting near Port Renfrew on Vancouver Island. All that's really given to us is the view of this guy's hairy gray back. Points for giving us another new color to see. Really refreshes the brain after a while of just seeing a sea of black fur. I was really waiting on something exciting for a video that was almost 2.5 minutes long. I was almost hoping the beast would turn around, see the camera guy, and just start chasing him. Something to keep the viewers engaged, you know? If it's fake, the costume design is pretty well done. It doesn't look like those cheap Party City animal outfits where you can see the plastic shine under the light. I give it a good 4 out of 5 on the cosplay aspect, but a 2 out of 10 for intriguing footage. No offense. I'm not the one to judge Bigfoot and what he consumes, but drinking water out of the swamp? You must have a gut of steel to be able to stomach that. All its dangerous organisms and probably leeches that live in there? It seems like this person was on a canoe or something trying to get this shot, because why would you dare walk bare in it? And manage to catch an alleged Bigfoot taking a sip of the yummy swamp water, and then ends up getting a little too silly and starts splashing around in the water. He's just a silly little creepy guy. If this is also some wild animal though, the person who filmed this should be considered lucky that it didn't start charging its way over. This one also seems much smaller than the other Bigfoots we've seen, because I'm always expecting a guy who's at least 10 feet with their feet bigger than my head. This is more like a medium foot from my scientific perspective. What is the sudden wave of these baby foots? We want to see big boys towering over us, whacking pine trees around like the first video. I want to be so scared that I never want to step foot into the woods again. Speaking of, these guys seem to have stumbled upon an itty bitty Sasquatch on a hike somewhere in the Provo Canyon. It doesn't seem to notice them until closer to the end of the video, where the alleged creature stands up and terrifies our crew of hikers. Yes, shaking running camera footage never fails to make the adrenaline rise. Works in every found footage horror movie. But come on guys, this thing doesn't even look that big. It doesn't even have the same muscle mass as the other monsters in this video. I'm not convinced, and I'm disappointed. Show me the big back boys. Here we go, some more big backs. But sadly, this clip is so short, I am unable to fully be immersed in this experience with the uploader. I will give props though that the atmosphere set up for this footage is perfect. We got the fog, we got the cloudy sky that's making it look darker, and we got the snow that reminds us about all the absolute decay that surrounds us. Perfect Yeti footage. This guy looks like a giant snowball because of his round shape and white fur. Another Bigfoot to add onto my list for cuddling. For once, I gotta say I wish this video was a bit more clear. You did a bit too much on the scuff for this one. I can't even make out what the creature is doing to even describe it to y'all. Is it bent over? Is it making snowballs to hurl at you? But I will say, get the heck out of the open area. You are leaving yourself too vulnerable for these things to come and grab you, which you thankfully seem to realize at the end when you freak out and run away. As you should. Our curiosity should only be nurtured for so long. Yippee! Another Bigfoot video out of the park. You guys are seemingly loving these if I'm being forced to make more of them. I also love just making fun and exploring them with you.
Number 10. How they live. In Washington State, a team of amateur Bigfoot researchers called the Olympic Project claimed to have discovered a collection of nests which belonged to Bigfoot. They had primatologists study them, with the conclusion being that they appear to have been created by a primate. There have been structures of broken and twisted foliage seemingly placed in specific areas, which have been attributed by some to Bigfoot behavior. In some reports, lodgepole pine and other small trees have been observed bent, uprooted, or stabbed stacked in patterns such as weaved and crisscrossed, leading to some to theorize that they are potential territorial markings. Some instances have included entire deer skeletons being suspended in high trees. Some Bigfoot researchers allege that Bigfoot throws rocks as territorial displays and for communication and audible blows struck against trees or wood knocking. Number 9. Where the species came from. Primatologist John R. Napier and anthropologist Gordon Strensenberg have suggested a species of Paranthropus as a possible candidate for the Bigfoot's identity, such as Paranthropus robutus with its gorilla-like crest skull and bipedal gait. Paranthropus is characterized by robust skulls with a prominent gorilla-like sagittal crest among the middle line, which suggests strong chewing muscles and broad herbivorous teeth used for grinding. Now, it's great that they believe this, but fossils of Paranthropus are found only in Africa, so it wouldn't really explain Bigfoot being in North America, but maybe it's something similar. Number 8. Research. Doing scientific research, Steve Moon, who has 3 MFAs and a master's in anthropology, has studied Bigfoot for the past 10 years, and he claims to have had at least 12 sightings. If you want credibility to build these theories, if you want to test, you want to actually discover things, then you've got to follow that method, he said. His ultimate goal is to prove Bigfoot's existence so the species may be appreciated and preserved. We all know that he exists, but now we need to find a way for science to accept the data, he said. While on a trail in the forest, Steve mimicked a Bigfoot's howl and he could hear a response. It was recorded and the recorder picked up a faint animal-like sound after his howl. Though it is almost inaudible, there is something there. Steve said, "I may have gotten a response. It's 2 seconds after my call ends. It's descending, followed by a percussive ascending note. If I were going to interpret this possible response, it sounds like a Sasquatch was offended by my call." Number 7. It's not just one species. Now, all around the world, people tell of mysterious beasts that are part human, part ape, typically large, hairy creatures that walk on 2 legs, but always seem to stay just out of sight. There isn't just a Bigfoot in North America, but there are other beasts as well. A yowie is found in Australia, particularly in the eastern part of the continent. There have been over 3,000 distinct yowie sightings that have been reported in the Blue Mountain area of west of Sydney. There's the Yeti, which is located in the Himalayas, which is also called the Abominable Snowman. The Orang Penyek is located in central Sumatra, Indonesia. Orang Penyek means a short person in Indonesian, which makes sense because it has a short stature and a human-like face. Local folklore says that these creatures walk with back-pointing feet to confuse anyone trying to track them. And finally, a chemosit is located in east central Kenyan forests. Some witnesses say that the chemosit looks like a hyena or bear and call it a Nandi bear after the Kenyan tribe that lives in its reported range. The Nandi people, however, consider the creature to be an enormous, ferocious primate that enjoys eating the brains of its victims. If there are so many creatures like this around the world, they have to exist then, right? Number 6. The theory. There have been many studies surrounding Bigfoot, and one study was conducted by John Napier and published in his book Bigfoot, the Yeti, and Sasquatch in Myth and Reality in 1973. John wrote that if a conclusion is to be reached based on scant exanted hard evidence, science must declare Bigfoot does not exist. However, he found it difficult to entirely reject thousands of alleged tracks scattered over 125,000 square miles, or to dismiss all the many hundreds of eyewitnesses' accounts. John concluded, "I'm convinced that Sasquatch exists, but whether it is all it's cracked up to be is another matter altogether. There must be something in the Northwest America that needs explaining, and that something leaves man-like footprints."
Number 5. Backyard Bigfoot. The following is a story shared to Reddit by user Bigfoot Watcher. Post is from 9 years back, and they wrote the following. 2 nights ago, my boyfriend went out to take the dogs out back. My one dog started barking like crazy right away. My boyfriend had a flashlight and quickly scanned the grass line where the woods start, where we normally see deer. Our house is bordered by woods. Something made him shine a bit higher, and he sees 2 eyes staring back at him, about 9 feet off the ground. As my boyfriend tries to hurry the dogs back inside, he sees the thing turn and casually walk back into the woods like a man, with arms and shoulders. I've never seen my boyfriend so freaked out. He came inside and closed every single window and all the blinds, and refuses to let the dogs out in the backyard at night anymore. In hindsight, there have been a few instances in the past few weeks that we can't explain, like dogs' toys being down by the woods with bites taken out, but it was the placement of the toys and whatnot that makes us wonder. Also, a grunt snort noise we heard recently. My boyfriend cannot get over the size of this thing and the fact that the eyes were so high off the ground. I asked him if he thought he saw a Bigfoot, and he said after a minute or so of silence, if I wasn't a believer before, I sure as hell am one now. Next on the list, we have the nighttime Bigfoot. I'm not 100% sold on this next clip, but it is pretty harrowing at the same time. Check this out. So you have people filming in the woods in the middle of the night. They've obviously heard something because they're scanning the woods with their camera, trying to spot whatever it is. And then this pops up. A big, hairy Sasquatch creature with a really creepy looking face. One little touch I like about this video is that you actually see it blink. It definitely makes it more convincing. I feel like if I saw this, I wouldn't be sticking around though. After the creature trudges back into the trees, they just kind of stand there breathing heavily. But I don't know, maybe they were shocked, frozen in fear. Anyway, what do you think of this one? Let me know in the comments. At number 3, we have another account posted to the BFRO. This one happened in September of 2018 in Whitmore, California. The man described his experience as follows. I was driving up to work from Redding. I worked at a school in Whitmore, California, in Shasta County. That was only accessible from a logging road. As I was going up the mountain, I rounded a corner, and about 300 feet from me and maybe 400 feet from Tintago Lane, a tall, hairy creature, dark brown with some gray along the back shoulders, walking on 2 legs, crossed the road, which is wide enough for 2 cars to pass each other, in about 2 steps, and then was in the woods. The hair on the back of my neck instantly stood up, and I was terrified. I had my 11-month-old son in the back seat, and I drove to campus as quickly as I could. There were major wildfires in the area at this time. Maybe it was trying to get away from the fires or incredibly unhealthy smoke. Several of my coworkers on that campus have had experiences as well. Alright, this next video was uploaded to the YouTube channel Beard Card in 2012 and has since received millions of views. A group of friends had gone camping in Provo Canyon. They'd seen some deer on a hill and went to get a closer look. There they spotted what they thought was a bear. You can hear them whispering to each other in the video. I mean, like seeing a bear, that would obviously be pretty nerve-wracking as is. But then the thing stands up, and once again becomes very clear that what they are looking at is not a bear. The thing is very wide. It doesn't look like it has the proportions of a human at all, at least not a regular sized one. It really, I don't know, just the idea of seeing something in the woods, you don't know what it is. This video really gets that across, and the reactions just seem genuine, like, oh, like they thought it was a bear the entire time, and then it stands up and they're like, okay, go. Anyway, coming in at number 1, we have the Harley Hoffman footage. I remember seeing this clip years ago. It was edited into an interview with Harley Hoffman, a Bigfoot explorer, researcher, enthusiast, I guess. I couldn't find the footage again until recently. This is footage that he captured. It's a pretty solid piece of footage too. You get a good glimpse of the creature. It doesn't look like just some guy in a cheap gorilla costume either. There actually looks like some musculature underneath the fur, much like the famous Patterson footage, which is why that footage is so famous. It doesn't look like just a guy in a suit. Now, there is some shaky cam going on here, but I have a hard time imagining if you actually came across a giant ape in the middle of the forest that you'd be calm enough to do some nice smooth Stanley Kubrick level of camera work, so that doesn't bother me too much.
Number 10. Strange sounds. A Bigfoot sighting became a federal investigation when a man fired his weapon inside a national park in Kentucky. Brad Ginn told news outlets he and his girlfriend were camping nearby and were awakened at about 1 a.m. by a man with his son. We got out of the tent and saw a man who told us their campsite had been destroyed by someone someone or something. The man, who was with his young son, showed them his weapon on his hip and told him the area was popular for Bigfoot sightings. The couple climbed back into their tent as the man walked away to investigate with his son in tow. We heard them coming back about 10 minutes later. We heard them yelling, "I see it," Brad said. "We saw a flash from his weapon, and he shot maybe 20 yards from the side of our tent into the pitch black darkness." After this, Brad and his girlfriend decided to leave and report the incident, which was the smart thing to do. A park spokeswoman, Molly Schwarr, said there was an investigation and that the park was safe to visit. The statement did not confirm a Bigfoot sighting, but Molly said that no threat remains in the park. Federal regulations prohibit the discharge of a firearm in the national park, and park officials know the identity of the person who allegedly fired the weapon, but no charges had been filed. Number 9. Thrown logs. In 2015, a pair of Bigfoot hunters were hot on the trail of a Bigfoot outside Houston, Texas. While following the beast, they realized the creature was unhappy with their presence. As they began their overnight hunt, the lead investigator realized that something was throwing full-sized logs at them from the tree line. That's according to Wes Germer, host of the Sasquatch Chronicle podcast, whose team ventured into the East Texas piney woods. In the early night, the noise came. We heard this thing crash through the bush, and then we heard this thing start crashing, just crash, 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 and you can hear it walking, and you can hear it breaking branches as it's going. Then the giant bolted off and plowed fiercely through the dense brush with astonishing speed. This thing moved so fast, it probably covered 150 yards like nothing. As we neared the spot where we heard the beast lurking, a noise grew and I knew what it was. It was a log coming, and it was a big log, and you could hear it being thrown. And I ducked down because I thought for sure it was going to hit us, but it hit the tree right in front of us, and I just couldn't believe what was happening. Wes says it was a warning, and that it wasn't the only time Sasquatch has thrown logs at unwelcomed intruders. Number 8. New footprint. In March 2022, in Big Sur, California, a hiker spotted a very large footprint. They took a picture of it next to their own foot for perspective and shared it on Reddit's Bigfoot page, where commenters discussed if they felt the print belonged to a Sasquatch or if it was nothing. And there were plenty of believers. One person wrote, "This is the first imprint I have seen that isn't clearly a bear. Good find." While another stated, "I wish the print was more fresh, but it really does look more like a Bigfoot track," and a third chimed in, "What a solid print." Someone else added, "Definitely Sasquatch. The upper foot impressions is relative to the lower width and diameter of depth. I'd reach out to the local Bresto Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization in your area ASAP." Now, it honestly does look huge, and to me, you can even see the toe prints. Seems pretty convincing to me. Number 7. Bigfoot eats hogs. East Texas is the home to many reported sightings of Bigfoot, including one particular encounter from a hunter in Panola County. The witness claims that while he was hog hunting, he watched a Sasquatch leap out of the woods and grabbed one of the hogs. The report states that the Bigfoot began making loud whooping noises, which were met with more howls from somewhere off in the distance. Before walking back into the woods, the creature stared directly at the hunter and growled. Seemed like the hunter got a little too close to Bigfoot territory. Now, those whooping sounds would definitely creep me out, especially if there were more coming from the forest. Ugh. Number 6. Face to face. One of the 3 Midland County Bigfoot encounters documented details of a witness discovering an ape-like creature on the first day of hunting season in 1997. The witness claims to have seen the legendary creature on November 15th, 1997, while driving in a wooded area near Coleman on Coleman Road, about 6 miles north of M20. They said, "I was driving north around 6:45 and saw a creature coming out of the ditch." The report describes the creature as having a flat, ape-like face and hair on its arms and head. The witness claims to have come within 10 feet of the creature when it looked at the witness. As the witness got closer to the beast, it made eye contact with him before disappearing into the trees, and that is terrifying. Number 5. recently spotted in Pennsylvania. The Bigfoot Field Organization, aka BFRO, has their own website filled with hundreds of stories of people spotting Bigfoot. On the website, a story was posted by a user saying, "On October 5th, 2022, while my boyfriend and I were biking on the ghost town trails near Ebensburg, Pennsylvania, we saw a Bigfoot coming about 150 yards in front of us. He was walking along the trail towards us. We couldn't see his face, but when he saw us, he turned around quickly and walked into the woods. As we went by, we looked into the woods and didn't see anything. It was really shocking as there were no sounds or smells. As he was walking, you could see how big his stride was, and there was a huge space between his legs. We thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing and thought it was so cool. Yes, Bigfoot does exist." And just in case you think the BFRO just took a submitted report, the site reported that it did a follow-up and spoke with the witnesses. It even names them on the site, and they found their testimony to be credible. The investigator who put it all together, Matthew Moneymaker, who was mentioned in part 1 of the series. If you haven't seen part 1 and part 2, check them out. Number 4. 3 photos of Bigfoot. A keen hunter once claimed to encounter Bigfoot and unveiled shocking photo proof to the world after setting up cameras outside his house. Craig Salk really loved hunting with his wife, and to increase the odds of their hunting success, Craig set up a number of trail cameras on his land. In 2012, one of his cameras snapped a mysterious figure that didn't appear to be animal or human. Luckily, Craig was a big fan of the show Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet, and he knew exactly what he had to do. He reached out to the TV channel and showed the producers the image captured on his cameras. Animal Planet was massively impressed by the fact that Craig had managed to get 3 snaps of the mysterious creature and filmed an episode with him. After the episode aired, Craig was suddenly a star, and he was flooded with phone calls and visits from Americans who wanted to share their own bizarre paranormal experiences. Craig and his wife soon opened their land to the world to let anyone come out and examine the spot where Bigfoot was seen, take a look at the pictures, and judge for themselves. Number 3. First sighting ever. David Thompson was a surveyor and trader who worked for the Hudson's Bay Company and the Northwest Company. He was considered one of North America's great pathfinders and surveyors as he traveled through Western North America between 1785 and 1812. Once he saw Bigfoot and wrote in his journal of his finding while in Alberta, Canada. He wrote, "January 7th, 1811. Continuing on our journey in the afternoon, we came on the track of a large animal. The snow about 6 inches deep on the ice. I measured it, 4 large toes, each 4 inches in length, to each a short claw. The ball of the foot sunk 3 inches lower than the toes. The hinder part of the foot didn't mark well, the length 14 inches by 8 inches in breadth, walking from north to south, and having passed about 6 hours. As the snow was about 6 inches in depth, the track was well defined, and we could see it for a full 100 yards from us. This animal was proceeding north to south. We did not attempt to follow it, we had no time for it, and the hunters, eager as they are to follow and shoot every animal, made no attempt to follow this beast, for what could the balls of our fowling guns do against such an animal?" Number 2. The Battle of Ape Canyon. The most successful launching pad for the public's obsession with Bigfoot is a battle that supposedly took place in a narrow gorge on the east flank of Mount St. Helens. The gorge is now called Ape Canyon. That's where, in the summer of 1924, a group of gold prospectors stumbled out of the woods shaking and glassy-eyed to tell of a 7-foot-tall ape-like animals attacking them with boulders. Fred Beck and 4 others described coming upon gorilla men near where they had built a small cabin. They saw 4 of the giant animals moving through the forest with erect, human-like strides. They were covered with long black hair, their ears were about 4 inches long and stuck straight up. They had 4 toes, short and stubby. The witnesses estimated each animal weighed around 400 pounds. Taken aback at the sight of the huge beasts, Fred fired his rifle at one of the creatures and struck 3 times, resulting in the wounded animal toppling off a cliff. This would be a mistake though, as that night the men were awakened when huge stones began hitting against their cabin. Then they heard and felt giant bodies slamming against the walls and door. The 8 men were seeking revenge and eventually tore a hole in the roof, allowing them to target Fred. Many Many of the rocks fell through the hole in the roof, and two of the rocks struck Fred, one of them rendering him unconscious for nearly 2 hours. Then, when the sun began to come up, the animals broke off their attack and slipped away. The men then poked their heads out the door, and when they decided the coast was clear, they ran out of the woods. And coming in at number 1, Bigfoot kidnapping. In 1924, Albert Ostman, a lumberjack and woodsman, went on vacation in the woods. Albert had heard stories about the man-beast who supposedly roamed these woods but refused to believe them. Then everything changed. One night when he was asleep, a Sasquatch picked him up and carried him off while he was in his sleeping bag. He was carried in a sleeping bag across the country for 3 hours by the Sasquatch. The Sasquatch then dropped Albert down on a plateau, and standing around him was a family of 4 of the creatures, 2 adults and 2 children. Albert claims he was kept captive by them for 6 days. One of the Bigfoots was reported as being 8 feet tall. Now, Albert had a gun, but he decided not to use it as they had done him no harm. He stayed with the Bigfoot family, stating he ate sweet-tasting grass that they gave him, and the female Sasquatch washed and stacked leaves. He escaped by making the large male Sasquatch groggy by feeding him some snuff. Albert did not tell his story for more than 24 years after it happened, in fear of being thought of as crazy. But as more Sasquatch stories appeared in the press, Albert decided to tell his story. Number 10. Joking about Bigfoot. In February of this year, a woman and her husband heard strange sounds for 2 nights and laughed about how they sounded like the Bigfoot sounds on television shows. That was their first mistake. Then on the 3rd night at dusk, they looked into the woods that bordered their property in Heflin, Alabama, and this is what happened. We saw what looked like Bigfoot peeking around a tree at us. We watched it for approximately 5 minutes as it appeared to look at us from the left and the right of the tree trunk. I dismissed it as being a distortion with the trees and wind. I turned to go into the house and looked back and distinctly saw what could have been only Bigfoot running away. I yelled for my husband and he also saw it running away. There was no mistaking what we saw. Both the husband and wife said the figure must have stood approximately 8 feet tall and its fur was very dark. Was Bigfoot spying on them? Who knows? Number 9. Side of a mountain. In December 2022, TikTok user Sasquatch Project, who claims to be connecting the cryptid community, posted a video of what appears to be Bigfoot. The text on the video reads, "Real giant caught on video in Mexico." The video shows what appears to be some sort of mountain or cave. There's a hole in the side of it and there's a large man looking out. He seems to be staring at the person recording and then backs up and goes back into the rocks. Many people in the comments made jokes, but a lot of them think it's real. One user commented, "What's going to be the government's excuse for this one? The video and the zoom is on point." Others are commenting that it's like the film The Hills Have Eyes, that it's a giant or Bigfoot, but who knows? Number 8. Bigfoot hiking. In 2001, a youth group was camping in the Marble Mountain Wilderness, California, when their leader, Jim Mills, noted a strange looking creature sulking along a ridge nearby. He believed it was Bigfoot and filmed it for nearly 7 minutes, making the somewhat grainy footage the longest video of an alleged Bigfoot sighting. The video shows Bigfoot walking down a hill. The creature is huge, it's dark in color, and is walking on 2 feet, but has somewhat of a strange stride. It's definitely not human, and no animal could appear like that, so the obvious answer is it's Bigfoot. But everyone in the video is shockingly calm though, which is crazy to me. Number 7. The footprint. In 1980, locals in Johnstown, Pennsylvania were baffled by a footprint they found. They first discovered the massive print in the mud and it belonged to somebody or something's right foot. Additionally, it had 6 toes rather than 5, and the second imprint of the left foot was found 8 feet away from the right print. It was so big and they measured it, finding it was 17.75 inches long. Now, this didn't spook too many people though, because according to the Associated Press, the footprint coincided with reports of strange noises and a strong but unusual odor in the area. Again, I love how everyone was just so chill about this. Number 6. Bigfoot crossing the road. This story is from a man in Canada. He said, "I was going moose hunting and my friend was driving and we had been on the road about 9 to 10 hours going to Ignis, Ontario, and we were on the Trans-Canada Highway. This area has the bush cut back some 30 to 40 years on each side of the road when I noticed an animal coming out of the north side of a ditch area and run across a 2-lane highway. This animal ran across the road on 2 legs and was about 20 yards away. By the time it crossed the road, my friend turned to me and said, "What the hell was that?" I said, "Don't you know that was a Sasquatch / a Bigfoot." It was about 6 to 7 feet tall. It had very long and muscular arms that went down to its knees. It was covered in fur that reminded me of moose hair. It looked like it was as tall or a little bit taller than the cab of the truck. It only took about 5 or 6 steps across the 2-lane highway and down to the ditch we were passing. I think it's a female because of breasts that were in the lower chest area, heavy legs and buttocks, about 300 to 400 pounds. It had less hair on the chest area and a partially covered homid face that I could see muscle definition on the arms and shoulders. Number 5. Bigfoot likes children. This user tells a story of seeing Bigfoot as a child. They said, "I've had 2 separate sightings here in central Alabama, once when I was about 5 and another when I was 19. The first one, I was at my Nana's house playing outside in a treehouse my dad and Pa built for me, and I looked off into the woods and saw a large light brown bipedal creature standing there watching me. So I ran inside to get my Nana, and when we came back out to the treehouse, it was gone. The second time, me and my wife were coming back from a buddy's house real late at night, and I saw something large cross on 2 legs in front of a yellow road sign up ahead. These signs were about 10 feet tall, and this thing covered the whole sign when I walked in front of it." Now, many people believe that Bigfoot likes children. While many don't think they actually eat children, they think they might try to kidnap them to keep as pets, as they like to watch kids for the same reason people like to watch kittens or puppies playing, and there's a similar urge to take one home with them. Number 4. Falling Bigfoot. Bigfoot has been reportedly spotted in Colorado more than 100 times in recent years, including one notable daylight spotting that occurred in Summit County, Colorado. In the summer of 2019, a daytime hiker was taking a break near an old log cabin in the area of Mayflower Gulch near Frisco when he spotted something strange at about 11,000 feet of elevation. He reported seeing a large bipedal creature attempting and failing to climb a 20-foot high snow wall. After the failed attempt at scaling the barrier, the creature moved on and out of sight. The hiker was joined by 2 others and they searched the area. During this search, the group was able to locate prints in the snow, including large handprints and footprints. That being said, they were unable to again locate the actual creature. The report prompted Bigfoot Field Research Organization investigator Scott Miles to further look into the report. Scott decided to meet up with the witness at the site of the spotting. At the scene, the witness was able to recount the sighting in a manner consistent with the initial report, pointing out exact landmarks involved in his story. After deeper analysis of the witness's account, Scott said, "I believe that the witness saw exactly what he reported and was witness to a Sasquatch, probably a young individual that accidentally or naively got caught in a compromising situation in the daytime in a fairly high traffic area." Number 3. In the swamp. In 2015, 2 men canoeing in Tampa, Florida swamp were expecting to see an alligator when they heard rustling on the bank. They soon realized that the creature they were watching was no alligator. One of the men said, "Initially, it was exciting. It was like, oh, is that a bear? That's pretty cool." But when we moved closer, it started to look less and less like a bear. In that moment, I was looking at it and getting a little bit freaked out, especially once it started really moving. You could tell that he was slapping the water, and it looked like maybe he was grabbing something. At the time, I was thinking, holy what the hell is this? By the time it walked off, my buddy was just like, let's go now. The friend moved one of the canoe paddles making a noise, which seemed to catch the attention of the hairy individual in the swamp. I don't know if it was a coincidence that it started moving because of the noise, but it seemed to know that we were there. He said his friend was so shaken by the experience that he won't talk about it. Number 2. His face. This user describes what they saw when they came face to face with Bigfoot. They saw the beast in early spring 1994 or 95 in Salt Fork State Park in Ohio, Hazak's Cave. I hope I said that right. He said, "The one I saw had black sclera, the white part of her eyes, and cheek pads like a male orangutan. It was not a man in a suit. It threw rocks at me as I hiked a path towards a small waterfall, and I was a little confused but oblivious. The last rock was bigger and hit me in the calf and hurt. I spun around quickly towards the direction it came from, yelling, 'That really hurt,' thinking it was somebody messing with me, and saw a head from the eyes looking up over a fallen tree tree or ridge maybe 15 feet away. It looked like an orangutan wearing a ghillie suit. I looked in the eyes for maybe 5 seconds trying to comprehend what I was looking at. Golden brown eyes with black sclera and cheek pads like a male orangutan. It didn't look malicious really, had more of an okay, you got the point look. It casually turned its eyes away and ducked back behind the tree or ridge. Then I realized what I saw and got back to my car. All I could think was that, because of his cheek pads, he was the dominant male of the troop. They must have been at the water source that I was hiking towards, and he was keeping me from getting closer. I was maybe 3/4 of the way there, but the smaller rock started at about the halfway point and got gradually bigger until I caught on. I told my brother and best friend, and they didn't believe me, so I dropped or suppressed it for 20 years. I didn't think of it again until I saw a Bigfoot toy and thought they got the face wrong. And coming in at number 1 is the traffic cam sighting. A Washington Department of Transportation traffic camera near Sherman Pass captured Bigfoot standing in the snow in January 2020. At least one person at the Washington State Department of Transportation seems to think they saw Bigfoot after tweeting out some puzzling images captured by one of the department's webcams. Sasquatch spotted, the Department East Twitter account tweeted, along with 3 circled and zoomed in photos. I'm not superstitious, just a little stitious. The employee points out that there appears to be something in the bottom left part of the frame. It looks like a person-shaped figure silhouetted against an evergreen tree. Might be Sasquatch, we will leave that up to you, the tweet said. The tweet also says that the photos were captured on State Road 20 Sherman Pass, a route that winds its way through the forested Cascade Mountains in the northeastern part of the state. The spot is about 70 kilometers south of the Canada-US border in Grand Forks, BC. Honestly, I think it could be Bigfoot.
And we're starting off the list with the Alabama sighting. So I tried to throw in some recent sightings for this list because we've all seen the famous Patterson footage. It's cool, but good to change things up a bit. So this one was reported by an elderly couple in Claiborne County, Alabama, and was posted on the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization website. The witnesses stated, "My husband and I heard strange sounds for 2 nights in February of 2023 and laughed about how they sounded like the Bigfoot sounds on television shows. The 3rd night at dusk, we were in our carport looking into the woods that border our property in Halphin, Claiborne County, Alabama. We saw what looked like Bigfoot peeking around a tree at us. We watched it for approximately 5 minutes as it appeared to look at us from the left and then right of the tree trunk. I dismissed it as being a distortion within the trees and wind, turned to go into the house and looked back and distinctly saw what could only be Bigfoot running away. I yelled for my husband and he also saw it running away. It had our hearts beating wildly and the hair standing up on our arms. There was no mistaking what we saw." At our number 9 spot, we have our first piece of Squatch footage for you. In this clip, you can clearly see a very large, hairy creature strolling through a wooded area. Now, what I like about this one is the shape of the creature. If this is someone in a costume, it's a pretty good one. It doesn't have the proportions of a human. It's very gorilla-like. This is a thick Squatch too, packing some gains in the tushy area. But also the back is massive and its head is like hunched in front. With so many supposedly real Bigfoot sightings videos, like the quote-unquote Bigfoot, rarely looks like it's carrying the weight of a massive sized hominid. Usually Bigfoot videos just look very blurry to make sense of anything too, or when you do see the creature, it just lacks the bulk that's often reported in first-hand Bigfoot accounts, just like a person in a cheap gorilla suit. But this one doesn't look human. A solid video, even if it is a hoax. At number 8, we have the Minerva monster case. In 1978, in Minerva, Ohio, the Caton family reported encountering a large, Bigfoot-like creature near their home. Their account included rocks thrown at their house and the discovery of enormous footprints in their backyard. Their dog was also mysteriously died, just mauled. This was not an isolated incident though. Several neighbors and other residents in the area also claimed sightings of a similar hairy creature around that same time, and this series of encounters became widely known as the Minerva monster case, drawing significant media attention. Jim Shannon, a former Stark County sheriff who had responded to one of the Caton family's distress calls, expressed his belief in their reports, stating that they were terrified of will always believe them that they saw something. It's just, what did they see? At number 7, we have another recent sighting, also posted to the BFRO, this time in Wisconsin. The sighting happened on May 28th, 2023. A woman had been driving down a road in the early morning in Oconto County when she spotted the creature. This area in northern Oconto County, Wisconsin, is mostly wooded with swamp near the Oconto River. As I near the corner, I saw a black and brown large figure of a man that I thought may have been someone that broke down on the trail as it was walking south towards Peshtigo Brook Road. I stopped at the corner as I could not believe what I was looking at, trying to wrap my head around it and convince myself it was a man as it was walking on 2 legs and had taken from what I saw about 10 steps toward me. However, there was no sound, no yelling for help or waving the arms, and no human-colored skin. It was in fact a dark black and brown figure with large legs and even at the base towards the feet. It was hairy. It was not a bear though, and it was not a human. I looked around the corner and could see in the distance down North Branch Road that a human was walking east towards me in that direction. I then looked back and the large black-brown figure went into the ditch and disappeared. I was convinced it had to be a Sasquatch. Number 6. Help, I think I saw a skunk ape. This video was posted to YouTube by Josh Highcliffe and is probably one of the most convincing Bigfoot, or in this case technically skunk ape, pieces of footage in recent years. The video was taken about 9 miles west of Tunica, Mississippi at around 6 p.m. in October of 2013. Josh had been hunting for hogs when he spotted the creature. He'd been sitting on a log waiting for the sun to go down when he heard strange noises coming from behind him, and when he turned around, he spotted this large, dark, furry creature digging out the stump of a dead tree. Now, I gotta say, I try to be skeptical when it comes to things like this. Cryptids, ghosts, whatever. But this video is pretty convincing. That looks like an animal messing around in the forest to me. Creepiest part is when the thing stands up and you see that it's way taller than you thought, and it was at this point that our cameraman was convinced that this was not a bear and decided to get the hell out of there.
Number 5. Tracks in BC. This story comes from a group of people from British Columbia in December 2022. We were returning home last night and 2 members in our vehicle said, "Look, is that a bear?" The person in the front seat saw what looked like a huge man standing on 2 legs. It bent over and fell to 4 legs. The person in the back saw the animal on the 4 legs. They both said it was not a bear. We live nearby, so when we got home, all 4 of us decided to go back and look for tracks. We went and filmed and took photos of a whole bunch of massive tracks that looked like they were from a biped animal. The tracks were bipedal in pattern and in a fairly straight line, except at points where they were side by side, as if the creature was stopping and standing still. We've also been walking in the woods near our house, and one time I saw a structure / setup of trees that looked deliberately placed in different crisscross arrangements. I also heard deep resonant sounds one night. It sounded part human, part animal. The Ohio howl matched exactly what she heard right outside her cabin, only a few hundred feet from where the sighting was. Number 4. Family witness. In 1996, this family saw Bigfoot. This user says, "My 2 daughters and I were driving into Yakima from our home in Natchez. The road runs along the Natchez River, and I looked down at the river, as I always do, to see deer or bald eagles. But this time, I saw a large dark figure at the edge of the water behind some bushes. Slamming on my brakes and backing up far enough to see the river again, the large figure was gone and nowhere to be seen. Of course, my kids said, 'Sure, Mom. Bigfoot? I don't think so.' About 2 weeks later, I was driving on the same road coming home, and about half a mile from where I thought I had seen the other one, there were 2 standing side by side just looking down at the water. One was about 1.5 feet taller than the other, both dark in color with very wide shoulders. Then about a week later, my husband was coming home. When he got home, he asked me where I thought I had seen the 2 Bigfoot. I told him, and he said that he had just seen something like I saw in the same area. He's a real skeptic, so for him to say he saw something, he must have. I look every day, and so far I have not seen my friends down by the water, but I won't give up looking. Number 3. Creature Week sighting. I was a vendor at Creature Week at Salt Fork State Park on May 4th in 2013. At 9:45 p.m., a fisherman that was in a tournament came all shook up and said at first I thought you were a bunch of nuts until now. He said he saw Bigfoot. This caught our attention and the 5 of us decided to go out the next morning at 6 a.m. to check out the site. So I got there at 5 a.m. and waited, so I said I'll start without them and maybe they'll catch up with me. I started to head down the sagebrush trail and headed to where the fishermen saw them. I kept walking and when I hit the first turn of the sagebrush trail, I heard something like talking on the ridge on my left. At first I thought it was friend A and friend B with friend A's black shirts on. So I hit a tree and yelled, "Hey guys, wait up." Then they started to walk faster and I yelled, "Very funny guys," and this is when I got a great look at them. It was 2 Bigfoots and they were black and huge. I tried to catch up with them, but once they got to the bottom of the ridge, they took off into the brush. I tried to follow them, but once they got into the brush, I could not hear or see them. But I got a great look at them. They were black as coal and the hair length was as long as a bear and well groomed. At any time they could have stopped and tore me in half, but all they wanted to do was get away as fast as possible. Number 2. Bigfoot on a highway. This family has seen Bigfoot and the wife retold the story, saying, "In October 1997, I was returning home from work on the US Highway 241 just outside Gladstone, Michigan. I got off work at 5, picked up my kids, and my son was in the front seat with me and my daughters were in the back. We had just left Gladstone city limits on a 4-lane highway when I noticed what I thought was a hunter crouched down on the opposite side of the median of the highway. As I approached, I said to my son, 'Look at that stupid hunter, why is he just sitting there?' But as we got closer to the man, or now I say creature, stood up. It was brown colored and it crossed the highway with a couple of steps as it was on the other side of the highway within seconds. As I passed, it put its arms down to its side and stepped into the woods and it was gone. I have seen bears, deer, wolves, coyotes, almost every living creature here. My mind raced after I saw this, looking for the logical answer of what this could be, and the only thing it could have been was a Bigfoot. Then 2 days later, after I saw the creature, it was reported on the local radio station that a Bigfoot was spotted on the same highway. And coming up at number 1 is the cottage Bigfoot. This dad saw Bigfoot when his family was away at their cottage. He said, "We had been at the cottage for a few days when my sons and I heard a series of grunts, chirps, and squeals. It was fairly obvious that the sounds were coming from 2 areas about 15 degrees apart. There was also the noise of wood breaking and banging that was quite loud. We stepped out onto the deck to listen better. It was fairly obvious that one noise was getting closer to the other. The noises were really loud and it sounded like mayhem was breaking loose, trees being smacked and banging noises, shouts, and whoops. Then it went quiet really quickly, which was followed by a series of deep whooping noises and clicks, which went on intermittently past the point I went to sleep. The next day I saw this big black brown thing sitting on a boulder about 20 feet above the water. I thought at first it was a bear, but when a bear sits, its legs just stick out in front, slightly splayed. The thing had knees and it was sitting with its knees up near its chest. I was not sure of what I was seeing, so I looked away and went back at it. I was not mistaken, it had knees and was covered in hair with no neck, and then slapped its hands on the rock about 3 times, both hands at the same time. It looked kinda straggly and matted. It was huge on top like the chest area, but it had scrawny by comparison legs. The hair on its legs were thinner and lighter. Then the thing just stood up and walked into the brush behind it. Seems like Bigfoot was just trying to enjoy the view of the lake to me.